Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David,
I'm Colin.
and this is where we talk all things Star Wars. And of course, this is the podcast that I don't think any of us really wanted to ever do, but we do definitely want to recognize one of the greats of the industry, one of the greats of cinema, stage,
Yes.
recording. Just one of the original people that made Star Wars and helped create Star Wars and build it up to what it became in the very early stages, the genesis of what Star Wars became in culture and pop culture.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure everyone's heard the news by now. It's James Earl Jones. He has passed away. Um, Born in 1931, he passed away apparently today. His agent let um, Variety know. Of course, CNN. He was the voice of CNN, which is one of my earliest memories of James Earl Jones. Is being told by my dad all the way back in maybe 1984ish, around there, that like 40 years ago, that the guy that I just heard do the CNN commercial is in fact the same voice as Darth Vader,
Yeah.
which blew my mind at the time. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about his legacy, his career, a lot of things that I didn't know about his career,
Yeah.
and it seems like right now I'm having camera difficulties. But
Yeah. Oh
what are your
man. Well,
thoughts about? What's the first thing you think about after the Darth Vader voice
um
acting for James Earl Jones? What
so
comes to your mind?
and I posted this on my Instagram. So for those who don't know, I actually have a speech impediment. I have a stutter that comes and goes. So growing up, James Earl Jones to me was a big inspiration, just because of he also had a stutter as well. But he didn't let that, defy him. He made something of himself and he inspired so many people and he overcame that. And George Lucas knew that he stuttered. And James Earl Jones was shocked. He was like, "You want me to voice this character? I mean, I don't know you, and you really don't know me, but I have a stutter, and you're okay with this." And it just went from there. And it's just so cool that someone that you know people who have um these things that in our minds, like we think it's going to hold us back, but the fact that very early on he just was like, I'm not going to let this hold back, not going to let this define me, um is incredible, because now we have this amazing voice throughout TV and movies and animation, from Star Wars, of course, to the voice of Mufasa. Like it's insane on how much he did, of just doing voices and including on screen, and he is just a continuous inspiration, um, to everyone, and to me as well. I still look back of being like he was a real inspiration, and I'm so lucky, as most fans are, that we got to see his performances throughout the years. So it's a very tragic loss, not just to the Star Wars community, but um to just um the whole entertainment industry altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course with the Star Wars Stuff podcast, so of course we're gonna think of him automatically as Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Um, but he was so much more than just the voice of Darth Vader. He famously has told the story over and over and over again. Like you referred to George Lucas, he originally wanted Orson Welles to play the part, but Orson
Yeah.
Welles's voice George Lucas thought was going to be too familiar for audiences. So then he looked to James Earl Jones, who had already acted before. He was in Stanley Kubrick's Doctor Strangelove. That was his first appearance. I think
Yeah.
everyone has seen that clip or the photos of James Earl Jones wearing like a pilot helmet and looking like he's in a cockpit. He was a bombardier in that film. Um, James Earl Jones was also the first ever celebrity on Sesame Street,
Yeah. Yeah. Man.
which has ties to Disney now that owns
Yeah.
Star Wars.
I totally
Also,
forgot
he
about
was an
that.
EGOT winner. He's one of the few people walking the earth to earn an EGOT, which is an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. I believe he has a couple of Tonys, a couple of Emmys, and he was given the last award was an honorary Oscar. So he's one of the few people that have earned that award. Um, he was also in Coming to America. He was the
Yeah.
father. Yeah, that was a terrific role for him. I love that movie in general, and of course, he was also in the sequel. He was also in The Sandlot. He was the neighbor that lived over the fence. Um, when I won't spoil The Sandlot for you, but his role was very entertaining. And like Colin pointed out, yes, he was born in Mississippi, but he was raised in Michigan, where
Yeah.
Colin was born and raised.
Hmm.
And he had a stutter. He said from ages 8 to 14, he didn't want to speak. And he had a severe stutter, and he had to read some poetry aloud in class. And that's how he overcame it, essentially. He just discovered that he could read in front of class and not stutter. And
Yeah.
that's how he overcame his stutter. I know Colin and I we have stutters. I've tried I have to focus very very hard not to stutter.
Same.
It's it's been something that I've dealt with since I was very young. And to know that information that one of the greatest voices, probably I want to say he's the greatest voice that anyone's ever heard in a cinema, had to overcome a speech impediment. I think that's an incredible aspect of him. And of course, he was also a black man. He had to deal with racism um, growing up. He went to the University of Michigan. He became a Shakespearean actor. Um, he I mean he did so many things. He lived to the age of 93. I think he had a very very full life. Of course, we all want to live as long as we possibly can. He returned to the role of Darth Vader in Rogue One. Gareth
Yeah.
Edwards got to go to New York to the recording booth and live out every Star Wars fan's fantasy of having James Earl Jones in the recording booth recording lines for Darth Vader for a new Star Wars film. I mean, that's just an incredible thing. Now, with technology that's progressed more and more, James Earl Jones gave permission to Lucasfilm to take his voice and to actually use it for future
Yeah.
projects with
Yeah.
the respeecher technology, which is terrific. I'm glad he did that. Um, just to kind of know how James Earl Jones felt about Star Wars after the huge pop cultural event that is Star Wars. He recorded. He was on an episode of The Big Bang Theory,
Yeah.
and there's a very famous scene where he's sitting down at dinner, and
Yep.
I believe Preston goes up to him and he's speechless. He can't talk. James Earl Jones looks up at him and he says something along the lines of, "Let me guess, you're a Star Wars fan." And he just
Yes.
nods. He can't talk. I don't
Yeah.
think I'd be able to speak either, man. I mean,
Yeah.
James Earl Jones, he was an
No.
imposing figure, very large man,
Yeah.
and of course the voice, the one of the most iconic voices. I think it's the voice, right? I mean,
Yeah. No. It's
whose voice is better, is more iconic than James
yeah.
Earl Jones's voice? I mean,
It's
maybe
dude. It's
Don LaFontaine, who was the trailer big
yeah.
voice guy. I mean, that's maybe like the only other voice that
So
everyone knows.
so the great thing about James Earl Jones is that I don't think there was any role that he was in where it was like a miss. Like there are some people
That's a
that
great point.
look back at their work and they're like, "Oh, I could have done better with this and this." But I think every role that James Earl Jones did, I think he gave it his all. I think his heart was in it always. You can always tell that in an actor as well if their heart's all the way in it. And every single role, you could tell that he was passionate about it, that he loved what he was doing. He loved being an actor. He loved being a voice actor. And you could really just tell that in all of his performances. Um, yeah, no, I mean, yes, I was raised as a Disney kid, so of course I look to Lion King, and y- like yes, it's a animated movie, but at the same time, it's just like that movie is so iconic. You cannot think of Lion King without thinking of Mufasa. I will say I was shocked when they were like, "We're doing a Mufasa movie," and then if you looked at like, they were saying like all the voice actors and everything that was going to be in it. James Earl Jones' voice was not in there, and I was really shocked by it. So I'm curious if they are going to. I I remember watching the new trailer and I didn't see his name lined up in there. So I could be wrong, but I didn't see his name in there. And Brooke and I both looked at each other and I was like, they're making a Mufasa movie and James Earl Jones isn't going to be in it. But I don't know. I could be wrong, but I just remember seeing that and I was like, wow. But he brought such man, I can't think of the word, but every time
Gravitas.
well, it's just when you watch Lion King or just hear his voice in general, like in anything that he's done, it's just there's something to it where it's unique. And there's not that the other thing is people have tried. People have tried to do impressions. People have tried to do it, but they can't nail it. There's no one I have really seen that has nailed like a James Earl Jones impression, just he because he just had this very unique sound to his voice, and it was really hard to redo. And that just shows you also how amazing and one of a kind of a person that he was. So I always look back at all of his work fondly, and of course Star Wars and Lion King and all that stuff. But it's just anytime I would be watching TV growing up, and I saw James Earl Jones just popped up, it would just be so cool. So um, he's definitely going to be missed.
Yeah, Darth Beard on YouTube says, such a sad day. I know we have AI and he's given his voice to Disney for all time, but it's not the same. Such a loss. We lost the voice of Tom Kane a few years ago too. Yep. Yeah, I just love the fact that he was a Star Wars fan. Like he kind of told
Yes,
everyone via the Big Bang Theory episode where he says,
yes,
"I like Star Wars too."
yeah, yeah. I have one thing to say to people like you. I like Star Wars too. And then I was like, yeah, let's go. And then like he did like that prank over at Carrie Fisher's house.
Yes.
And then fun fact about that, that was the first time that James Earl Jones and Carrie Fisher actually met each other. Was on the set of the Big Bang Theory because he was the voice of Darth Vader. He was never on set. So that was super
Yeah.
like that Easter egg was super cool. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And he
Mm.
had a if you watch his interviews, he had a very kind of it felt like if you met him in real life, you could talk to him. He was very personable. He was very kind of in on the whole celebrity thing that he knew he was famous. He knew he was the voice of Darth Vader. Also, the other thing, too, do you know how much he was paid for A New Hope for voicing Darth Vader?
No, how much?
$7,000.
Wow. That's insane.
That is an insanely low amount for the voice of Darth Vader. So yeah, there's tons of interviews of James Earl Jones on YouTube. I was trying to watch as many as I possibly could today. Um, just his story is an incredible story. I'm pretty sure that there will probably be a biopic at some point. I mean
Yeah.
his life is just that incredible. Um, I mean an EGOT winner. He has all the awards. I think there is a theater named after him where he got his honorary Oscar, I believe, or actually, I think one of his Tonys, and Mark Hamill was there with him, a very very young Mark Hamill, and there's a picture out there of them hugging. And today, Mark Hamill did post something, and I do have a picture of Mark Hamill's post. It simply says hashtag RIP, rest in peace, Dad, with a broken heart. James Earl Jones, a prolific film, TV, and theater actor whose resonant, unmistakable baritone
Yeah.
was most widely known as the voice of Star Wars villain Darth Vader, died Monday. He was 93. So just an incredible life on stage, in Star Wars, in pop culture, in Disney as
Yeah.
Mufasa. Um, just someone that, yeah, he's gonna be remembered for all time, and sneakily, I think he's in a lot of things that were super super big, super impactful, um, in pop culture. We talked about The Sandlot, Field of Dreams, which was a huge film,
Love
and
Field of Dreams.
and
That's such a good
became
movie.
bigger and bigger, almost like Rogue One as time went on. And
Yeah.
I discovered that film, I think, in the early '90s at my cousin's house. He was watching it, and I saw Kevin Costner on screen. I was like, okay, Kevin Costner's there. And then James Earl Jones shows up, and I was like, wow, he's actually in this. And he stayed in the movie. He was like co-starring in the movie, and it was just a huge, iconic love letter to baseball. And then those days, I was really a huge baseball fan as well. And then to find out that, I mean, this was before the internet, that so many people held that film in such high regard.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we covered Mufasa. He was in that. The graphic here. He was in Conan,
Yeah.
Coming to America, Doctor Strange. Also, I believe is that the Hunt for Red October? He was also like a general as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I believe it was Red October. You know.
Yeah, I mean, just a while. I'm not a theater stage person, but he had a very prolific career there as well. Um, he won the Tony for Fences, and if that sounds familiar, Denzel Washington just remade that film, and James Earl Jones won the Tony for that on Broadway, and then he actually starred. I hope I'm not mixing this up. He did a boxing movie. Do you know the name of it, Colin? Anyone in chat have that
Wait,
name?
of what? Sorry, what?
The film he did where he was nominated for an Oscar. I think it was the first film.
Let's look it up.
Yeah, I'm looking through. So yeah, his career actually spans about 70 years, stage and screen.
Yeah. So
It
he.
was a
Yes.
Great White Hope.
Okay.
It was a Great White Hope. He actually got nominated for an Oscar for that, and actually, he didn't win the Oscar then, but he was given an honorary Oscar. So yeah, I'll just go through the list of movies here. Doctor Strangelove, Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, Alec Guinness, Peter Ustinov, the comedian. So he was in a movie with Alec Guinness. Didn't know that. The Great White Hope, The Man, Claudine, The K, UFO Incident, Deadly Hero, The River Niger, The Bingo, Long, Swashbuckler, The Greatest. I knew he was in a Muhammad Ali film. And then it gets to Star Wars, A New Hope, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, the last remake of Bo Guest. He was in The Making of Star Wars, which, are you familiar with that, Colin? It looks like a documentary. It's like 50 minutes long, came out in 1977.
Yeah, there was that one. There was also one for Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi as well. Um, Mark Hamill mainly did the one for Empire, and I think James Earl Jones voiced most of the stuff for A New Hope.
Yeah, he was in a film with Sidney Poitier, a piece of the action, and then he was also credited in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yeah, yep, because he technically did record new lines for it, but they used old footage from A New Hope in it.
And then, of course,
That's
he
funny.
also did. He was maybe his iconic Vader role in The Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian, The Flight of Dragons, Blood Tide, then back to Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. I mean, just so many different films. Coming to America, Field of Dreams, The Hunt for Red October, The Sandlot, Sneakers. I actually, to this day, haven't seen that film. That film would come on Showtime all the time, but I would never try to watch it. It's with Robert Redford. Of course, The Lion King. He reprised his role in Clear and Present Danger. So yeah, he's got a ton of credits. He was actually in The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. And then, of
Yep.
course, Revenge of the Sith. And they credited him
Didn't
in The Rise
yeah,
of
I was saying.
Skywalker as well.
Yeah.
And, of course, Rogue One.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, going forward, they have a lot of opportunity to go do um different Star Wars things, I guess, just because they now have the right because James Earl Jones gave them the rights to, use his voice for AI and all that stuff. So, um, in a way, that is great because his no matter what, his legacy will live forever. But now his legacy will be able to continue um, going forward. So it's gonna be interesting to see what they end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, we think that there is going to be something Vader heavy in the future. Um, Either a TV show or a film series, trilogy, something with Hayden Christensen. And of course, James Earl Jones provided the voice. They have the respeecher technology where they can duplicate Vader's voice, James Earl Jones's voice as Vader. I know in previous projects it hasn't sounded. They've used other actors, and of course, it just doesn't sound right if it's not James Earl Jones to me. I mean, he left the ultimate impression as far as his voice acting goes for Vader. And like I said, I just love the fact that he was a Star Wars fan and he loved the franchise and came back over and over and over again and gave permission to Lucasfilm to use his voice for future projects. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. And it's super sad to also think about this too, but from like the original film, like of A New Hope, Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford are the only ones left.
yeah, we still have Anthony Daniels.
Oh yeah, shoot, yep, yep. You're right. You're right. You're right. Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through the whole cast. I
It
mean, we still
is.
have the maker, we still have George Lucas, but this really does put it in
Yeah.
perspective. I mean,
It's not that I forgot about him. I'm just saying I did not forget about
yeah,
Anthony
there's. I
Daniels.
mean, Star Wars is
I
a huge
was.
ensemble. I mean, I think we'll all
I
forgive
was.
you for that. But
I was thinking about that picture of the
right,
of the black and white picture where they're all like there, and then
yeah,
unfortunately when someone passes away, they like make them a force ghost. So I
right,
was
right.
thinking of that one. Yeah.
So our good friend Mike C says, "No, I am your father." One of the most misquoted movie lines. Thank you for everything, Mr. James Earl Jones. Be one with the Force.
Mm-hmm.
I bet Mike could do a pretty good Vader impression.
I will always remember his salacious crumb, and it freaked me out at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's our Mike is one of our celebration buddies we always meet up with. Um, so yeah, I mean, memories just came rushing to me from when I was essentially a baby, all the way back in 1984, watching Star Wars for the first time, and then maybe my dad hitting stop, and then the TV was just on CNN, and then my dad telling me, "Hey, that's the same guy doing that commercial." And it's weirdly enough, it's one of my core memories, remembering James Earl Jones doing the dialogue. This is CNN, and then it's like the camera like rolling up, and it was a very sophisticated graphic for the 80s, but it was like it was almost like a wave, and in the wave there were like moving images. And I remember the one that I really remember the most vivid was Mario Lemieux holding up the Stanley Cup. But see Mario Lemieux didn't win the Stanley Cup in the 80s though, so I might be like mixing memories here. But I remember that's the most iconic thing I remember, and that's when I discovered hockey for the first time. I'm like, what is that? What's that sport? But because I
Yeah.
live in Texas, there's no ice here. Um, so I mean, just so many iconic roles and giving life to Darth Vader and giving him the presence. I mean, he already looked menacing, but growing up, I thought when I thought Darth Vader, I thought James Earl Jones. In these past few years, I'm thinking more Hayden Christensen, but for I want to say most of my life, I thought about James Earl Jones and what he did for Star Wars and being a part of the whole tapestry that led to the greatness that is Star Wars. I mean, his voice just added to the score, the sound design, the casting. I mean, it was just he was part of the perfect storm. I like to say for Star Wars greatness that came to be and just the huge figure he was. Um,
Yeah.
a major impact on pop culture. So it looks like I said earlier, there's probably something down the road Vader centric. We don't have anything definite, but we are gonna I believe we are gonna hear more from James Earl Jones as Darth Vader as time goes
Yes.
on via technology, and I'm hoping we get the series of Darth Vader, and I think everyone's heard my pitch. Do kind of like
Yeah.
an Obi-Wan season 2, but Vader and Obi-Wan
Yeah.
never meet and have the concurrent timelines.
I just keep hearing like people saying like we don't need a Vader series. The entire like the prequels in the original trilogy is the Vader series, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. What we're talking about is we want like a show or a movie of where Darth Vader is in his prime during that 20-year gap from Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope, because that right there would be amazing. What was his final Vader appearance? Um, uh, uh, Obi Obi-Wan?
I think so, yeah.
Well, in Ahsoka, there's the part where he says you um Hayden Christian says you lack conviction. And when he says that, it's a mix of his voice and James Earl Jones' voice because he jumps back from like Darth Vader to Anakin. So that might
That
have been
might be
it.
the answer, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer. Ahsoka
Yeah.
season 1, which was last year.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, he was a working actor up until the bitter
Yeah.
end, and I just love the fact that he really wanted to keep coming back to Star Wars, and he I think he was really a people person. He really loved what he did. He loved people. That's what it felt like to me.
No. His true.
So Zach on YouTube says, "Rest in peace to a legend. It would be cool to see his character honored with appearances in future projects or perhaps his own."
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we kind of would love to see. Um, and yeah, I mean, he has his own a theater named after him. I wonder if there's anything Star Wars related named after him, like a building or anything really. I haven't been to any of the Lucasfilm campuses, but I imagine there's something out there. Um, and the fact that he was in the very beginning, the very, very, very beginning of Star Wars, he was he was a minority actor in Star Wars, and I think that was huge back then. I don't think um, that was something that was really um, heard from or seen. And I think he gave a lot of inspiration to a lot of people. We talked about um, the stuttering that he had, but to be a minority as well in Star Wars at the very beginning, I think was also huge. And I think as a kid too, I I mean that made me that I thought that was very fascinating as well, to know that a black man was voicing Darth Vader, and and then it was kind of talked about later on in the years, and it was like, yeah, I mean, his voice was just perfect to go along with the suit, and just how menacing and imposing it was. And he was a big guy himself, but it was literally the perfect voice for Darth Vader. I don't think anyone's even contemplated having a different voice for the most iconic cinema villain of all time. I mean, that just speaks to James Earl Jones' talent, and just the texture of his voice is just incredible. And Darth Vader is, I mean, without a doubt, he is the the greatest cinema villain of all time. I think
Yeah.
people will want to argue um, certain other characters, but I mean, when you take in the totality of the impact of Star Wars, it's Darth Vader without a
Yeah.
doubt, and James Earl Jones is the voice, and that's what you that's the impression. It's James Earl Jones's voice that you get, along with the black Vader.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's no, he was such an icon like that. The voice is so iconic. And like I said, people have tried to do impressions. And there's a lot of people who do voice impressions that are like super, super great at it. But you it's you can't nail that voice because it's so unique and it's such a hard thing to do. I remember pretty much any Star Wars game like you ever play and you
Yeah,
hear Darth Vader,
yeah,
it's not the same. You
yeah,
can tell right away it's not James Earl Jones. They're trying really hard, but you just can't do it.
yeah.
You just can't nail that
It
voice.
can never
And
be duplicated by another human being.
no, no. So rest in peace to this legend. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I definitely want to reiterate that. James Earl Jones lived an incredible life, had an incredible impact on us as Star Wars fans, for the stage community, for the voice recording community, for minorities. I mean, he lived an incredible life. Won many, many awards. Was an EGOT winner, um, and I think he's gonna be very much missed by all of his friends, his family, and the people that knew him. And with that, we're gonna end the podcast. And yeah, we just wanted to say a few words and remember him. We'll probably talk about more James Earl Jones stuff in future podcasts, but I just want to get on here and say a few words and
Yeah.
talk about his impact, because he was one of the greats and one of the huge contributors to a lot of our happiness and fond memories of childhood, and an incredible actor in person. So, with that, for Colin, my name is David. May the force be with you.
Always.